Talk shoe. Recorded live.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the blacksciencefictionsociety.com website. This is the April 22nd, 2016 edition, and our special guest tonight is a writer, filmmaker, artist, man about town, either military or former military. We'll get to that in a minute, Mark Hill. But first, I'd like to have a moment of silence for the passing of the purple one, Prince. Okay, that's long enough. We lost quite the artist this week, and it's sad to say because he obviously touched a lot of lives, and he touched a lot of lives in across the world. You know, irrespective of color, irrespective of religion. He was quite an exceptional talent, and to pass away at 57 was just a damn shame. It's also a little worrying because I'm older than that now, and I don't want to be thinking about folks that age leaving us. Anyway, enough about Prince. Welcome to the show, Mark. How are you tonight?
I'm doing good. I'm doing real good.
And you're coming to us from Tennessee, right?
Yes, Nashville, Tennessee.
And go ahead, make me feel bad. What was the temperature there today?
I think today was like 82 degrees.
Oh man, you know, we were in the high 40s today here in Chicago, so I do have a little weather envy towards you. Anyway, you know, you got to take what you can. I mean, it is Chicago weather, and I think they originated the joke: if you don't like the weather here in Chicago, wait a minute, because it can change just like that. Anyway, welcome to the show, and let me ask you this: you're ready to settle in? You got your beverage in front of you? We're going to do this whole thing.
Oh yeah, I'm good to go.
Okay. Anyway, we know you're in Nashville right now. Are you kind of a native, or where did you grow up?
I'm a native of Florida. I'm originally from Fort Walton Beach, Florida. That's right outside of Pensacola in Upper Panhandle, what we affectionately call Lower Alabama, Florida. So where I'm from, where I'm from is a little country. It's the countryside of Florida, but I'm from where we have the white sand beaches, and also I remember they filmed Jaws 2 there some years ago.
And let me ask you this though, you know, when you talk about being from that area, and you may not know because you may not have been there around, you know, for that time, but what has been the result? What's the lingering result of that devastating oil spill that they had, you know, just as recently as several years ago? Have you kept up with that, or haven't been down there?
It's been a while since I've been home. The last time I was home was in 2012. I had a family reunion in Sandestin, but I can speak from some experience from my military time because I was in Alaska, and I would truly say that you know, they take hazardous materials and hazardous spills real serious. I remember there was one a few years ago in Alaska, and it had a lot of devastating effects. So I could truly say, even for Florida, we're talking about natural habitat being pretty much obliterated. You know, it's a very ugly thing to look at, especially you see the fishes, you know, floating on top of the water, and they're covered in oil, or even some of the birds and whatnot. It's an ugly sight to see, but like I say, you have people who's determined to, you know, recover the environment as best they can. I would truly say, like I said, from my time in the military, I worked around a lot of hazardous materials. In fact, I was in charge of that section for the motor pool I worked in, and I could truly say, you know, they take it very seriously. You know, what happened in Florida, what you speak of, like I said, I haven't been home in a little while, but I know the lasting effects of it.
And anyway, okay, so well, we'll get to the Alaska and the military time, but I mean, basically, where did you grow up as a child? Was it down in Florida?
Yes, I grew up in Fort Walton Beach, Florida, born and raised. But you know, because a good majority of my family, are military or previous military. I moved around a lot, so by the time I would say by the time I got to my teenage years, I was living in San Antonio, Texas. That's where I started high school, and then I finished high school in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Wow. And then, since do so many things, I would guess, maybe your artistic streak or your writing might have started out. Did that kind of come out early for you, or give us a little idea about, how your creative talent started to manifest itself, and about how old were you?
Okay, I was 4 years old when I discovered I could draw. I could draw before I could write. It was just like, I don't know, I just picked up the pen and paper and I just started doodling stuff. But I will say the artistic talent runs deep in my family. I have other members of my family that do other things. Some are a little bit on the other side of the spectrum of art. I have a couple uncles who do architecture. I had an aunt who did interior design. And my biological father, he's very good with photography. So I, myself, like I said, I just picked up the pen and paper at a very young age, and I just ran with it. But I would say my talent runs in two components. I'm very good at drawing, but I'm also a very creative person. I would say by the time I was about 10 years old, I could start, designing my own characters and start making these little storylines. I did stuff like that to pass my time. I was, as a child, I was a very self-contained individual. Like I had older cousins and my younger brother. They always seemed to stay in a lot of stuff. Nothing real serious, but just they always into something. Whereas, I was, you could always find me at a table with some coloring books and some paper. I would just sit there hours at a time and draw stuff. And like I said, by the time I was 10 years old, I could draw just about anything I looked at on a smaller scale.
Wow. And so, I mean, obviously having other creative people around you helps kind of foster your own creativity because, you have an example to follow and stuff like that. But at that early age, what were some of the influences from you? Were they cartoons? Were they movies, TV? What was it that kind of drove your art?
It was a combination of many things. Well, let's start with the first. I was born in 1970, so I was privileged to be a part of the Saturday morning cartoon explosion of that time. Saturday morning cartoons was the king of all things that every kid in America was into. Hanna-Barbera, I was heavily influenced by Hanna-Barbera. Scooby-Doo, the Jetsons, Fred Flintstone. I was just, they were the kings of the cartoon at that time. Also, I would say by the time I got into, my early teenage years, that's when I got into comic books because I had an older cousin. He, his mom just bought them for him. I don't think he really cared for him a whole lot. So, he would pass them down to me, and I would just, I'd just be lost in them. I started, reading them and getting into it. Marvel was my favorite comic book group. I mean, I like DC too, but I was more of a Marvel fan. And I started off with Spider-Man, of course, the Avengers, Hulk, Iron Man. I was just really into it all. That was an influence as far as the comic book side. Now, as far as the artists, as I started getting older, I really started paying attention to some of the artists. And to me, like, one of the greatest comic book artists who heavily influenced me was Jack King Kirby. His style was just phenomenal. He was the guy that could make the cartoon come right off the page. And I have some elements of his style in what I do. I was always told, you take the best from people you admire and you throw it in with your own bag of tricks, Right. Like I said, John Buscema, Sal Buscema, John Romita Jr. and Sr., John Byrne. These guys, they was the top dogs of the early 80s. That's when I was really getting into it. Also, what influenced me was movies. Of course, Star Wars. I'm a big Star Wars fan. Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, the original series that is. What was it? What's that show? Buck Rogers in the 25th century. I used to just be into all that stuff. Anything that was real science fiction, the deep space type stuff. I was just into it. I was deeply into it. Also, video games. The early '80s was the advent of the home video game system, and also arcades. That was another thing. I used to go to the arcades, when I got my allowance, and if I was a quote unquote good boy, I would go to the arcades and whatnot. And it's just something about seeing the digital patterns and the colors. I don't know, they just kind of did something for me. And I would say, lastly, being like I said, a teenager of the '80s, was the advent of hip hop, the subgenre electro funk. You had African Bambaataa, Cybertron, Hashim, Twilight 22, that electro hip hop music. I used to break dance back in the day, but it's really weird. Okay. It's just like when I listen to that music, it kind of really inspires me. So even still to this day, I have a lot of that music on my computer. So like when I'm actually into some drawing, I'm always playing those tracks and stuff like that. So those elements, shaped and molded, not only me as a person, but it shaped and molded my art.
Right. And so, it sounds like you were already kind of enthusiastically imbibed with the desire to create. And so while you're doing all of this, as you're growing up, what kind of, did you have good encouragement around you? What about at school? How was that received? I would imagine coming from a creative family, it was fine. Did you get encouragement and direction while you were at school?
Oh yeah, most definitely. Back in 1982, I was in the 7th grade, and I was really getting into designing characters, and more or less, for people who've seen some of my work, I currently have a comic book series out called The Space Safarians, and that was around the time I created them. They're the little furry animals with superpowers that hang out in outer space, and like I said, I was so heavily influenced by Hanna-Barbera, I just ran with the whole little animal thing, And like I said, I used to put together my own little comic books just for my enjoyment, really. I just, pass my time and even to a degree sharpen my skills. But I noticed something. People would see what I would do, and they was like, "Oh man, that's cool. You did this?" And I was like, "Yeah, I drew this out. I wrote the story. I colored it. I did it all." And even at that time in my life, I started to see that I was drawing an audience, that people, who really dug what I was doing. I was basically, any art class that I was, stuck in, I became an instant superstar. I mean, the teacher knew I had skills, and what was so, I guess, amazing to it is that the simple fact that I'm self-taught. Now, don't get it twisted. Like, I'm not saying I didn't have an education. I do have a degree in graphic design. I've learned some things through the years, by being in school. But I would truly say, my skill, my talent is 80% me, and then 20% education that I've learned or even studied under certain people. But I noticed, just people in general, like the students or even some of my friends, they was just like, man, that's really cool. And I hung out. I mean, don't get it. I played sports and everything, but I wasn't a real popular kid. People knew who I was, but I wasn't on the in crowd. So I hung out with, more or less the nerdy crowd, but people who could speak my language. We could sit back and, talk about who's better, Batman or Captain America, or who would win in a fight, Terminator or RoboCop. We could talk like that, and it was cool. Also, back in that day, Dungeons and Dragons, those role-playing games came out. So it would be, something of common practice on the weekends. My mom would drop me off at some of our friends' house, and we would have a marathon of Dungeons and Dragons. We watch a lot of science fiction movies. we sit back and talk all the stuff. But I noticed I was around people who talked about ideas and concepts, and that's kind of who I am as a person, even and also as an artist. I talk about a lot of ideas and concepts and possibilities, and that to me is a result of a creative person, a creative mind. And like I said, I hung around people who fed off my energy, and I fed off theirs as well.
Well, that's pretty good. That's very lucky to have a supportive community right around you like that. And also, it sound. You were in some at least bigger cities where you had a little denser population, so that obviously worked out to your benefit too.
Right.
And then, how long was it? Well, first of all, how long was it before you started thinking, I might have some commercial viability here? Although you may not have used those words. I wouldn't have used those words at that age, but you know what I'm saying.
Right, I know exactly what you're saying. I would say it wasn't until I got into the military. I joined the military in 1994. I was 23 years old, and people, you being an artist, people always gonna know that what you do, because when you see me in my off time, I always with a sketch pad and some pencils and stuff. So people would come up to me, even my leadership. They would come to me, hey, Private Hill, I heard you can draw really good. Well, hey, can you design a logo for our company T-shirt? I did that. I also did a mural for the company I was in Alaska. They just, everybody else that worked, they say, all right, here, check this out. Specialist Hill, you get up on this wall. We want you to do something really cool. We've seen your skills. Go ahead and do it. And that's when I started noticing that I had some kind of commercial marketability about myself and my skills. Now, when it came down to the comic book thing, the Space Safarians, like I said, a lot of people who've known me through the years, they say, oh, this is really cool, this is good, you on your way. And I'm not gonna lie, for a minute, one part of me would say, yeah, you're right, and then the other part was saying I'm not too sure. I was still kind of unsure of myself. And it wasn't until around 2012 I went to several comic book conventions around that time, but I went to the big one down in Atlanta called the Dragon Con, and I met some other black artists because for the longest time I really thought a lot of comic book art was done by white guys and stuff. But when I went there, I actually met a few black guys that was drawing some major titles. One of them that brings to mind was a guy named Dexter Vines. I met him, and he was drawing the Marvel Civil War, which is now becoming a movie now. And
sure,
I would go there and I'd take my work and I'd show people what I could do. And he just basically said, hey, you got it, man. Just go ahead and do it. And I kept hearing that from a lot of people, say, you got what it takes to make it, man. Just do it. So when I would say a few years ago, it was about 2 years ago, I just made a conscious decision to say, you know what? It's a now or never moment in my life to do the thing that I was born to do. I strongly believe that my skills are good enough to, hang with the professionals. And in my own way, I am professional. But at that time, I'm just coming into the knowledge of that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And I got to work. And I started to see people really digging my concept. I put them on my Facebook page. I made a page for the Space Safarians through my Facebook page. And all of a sudden, I started getting fans and people digging what I was doing. So that's when basically the lights came on. Like, I'm going to take this ball and I'm going to run with it as long and as fast as I can.
Man, it seems like you did it in such an easy way. But, I happen to know when you're in the military, you're not always afforded the time to go off and do your own thing,
Right.
How was it for you? Did you have to wait a little while until you were out, or what? How did that all fit?
Well, to be truthful, when I was in, I would say by the time I made to the rank of sergeant, I was stationed. This is around the late '90s now, right? I was stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia. That's Augusta, Georgia, and I talked to the local Army newspaper. I said, "Hey, I'm a cartoonist. Is there anything I can do to contribute to the newspaper?" And they said, "Yeah, sure." So basically, I created two characters based off an Army song called Dog-Faced Soldiers. It's an Army song called I'm a Dog-Faced Soldier. So I designed these two, dog characters that was, they wore BDUs and just their daily, adventures being in the military. And a lot of it was loosely based off of some of my exploits in the military. And I did that for about a year. I would donate that comic to the local newspaper, and it ran for about a year. The Army has a nationwide publication called Soldiers Magazine, right? And in the March 2000 issue, I was featured in it. And what was so crazy was I didn't even know I was in there until one day one of my soldiers came up to me, "Hey, Sergeant Hill, you're in Soldiers Magazine?" I'm like, "Really?" And I looked and I saw the picture that they took of me, and I saw my characters in the backdrop. But I found the time to even do that much. I wasn't doing the Space Safari thing as much. I would sit back and I designed the look of them and stuff, but I really wasn't too deep in drawing the comic book at the time. But the one thing I walked away from the Army with is time management. I learned to, like they used to say, out of a 24-hour period, you mean to tell me you can't squeeze out at least 30 minutes to do something for yourself? So
Right.
So that's what I took away from that. I learned to manage my time. Like even now, I currently have, my girlfriend. We've been together for the last 6 years, and we have a 10-month-old son together. And I'm a father 3 times over. I have 2 older children. They live in Washington State with my ex-wife, and here, I'm reprising my role as, father again. And I have to manage my time with that. Usually I do a lot of my drawing late at night or early in the morning because, nobody's distracting me. Nobody's trying to talk to me while I'm working because, when I get into what I call my art mode, it's like I don't want to be bothered with nobody. I'm into my thoughts. I'm into the vibe of it all. So I've learned to, like I said, to manage my time. I even write myself a schedule of certain things that I need to do throughout the week. So, I try to stay on. I mean, sometimes, you miss your point because, sometimes life throws you a curveball here or there. But generally, I have a schedule that I work off of, and I go with that.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that it's because of your military experience that you probably have a better handle on organization and time management than maybe the average person does?
I would truly say yes, because if you had anybody in your family, or even if you yourself has been in or been around the military, they're all about time management and organization. Now, coming in, I was a private, and I made it up to specialist, and I made it to sergeant. By the time I got into my later years as specialist, I'm getting ready for my leadership role as sergeant. They started placing more responsibility on me, and with that, I had to learn how to organize and prioritize certain things. And like I said, with that, I mean, it's drilled into you so much, it becomes part of your fiber.
Right.
I'm not gonna lie. When I first left the military for good, I was still in a lot of my phone calls were out, because in the military, when you talk to somebody, you would say out. Yeah, I was still talking like that. It took me a minute to get back to all right, goodbye. You know what I mean? But yeah, they instilled in you a sense of organizational skills. You're prioritizing things and your time management. But also the most important thing that I always I tell anybody, I say, like in the military, we say failure is not an option. So with that being said, it's just like, I've been throwing some curveballs and stuff, but I've learned to maneuver maneuver around them. And
I'm having a little bit of a difficulty hearing you. I'm not sure if that's you or TalkShoe. Can you hear me okay, Mark?
okay, okay, you hear me?
Yeah, now it's better. Yeah.
All right. All right.
Unfortunately, either you've dropped out or I'm not hearing you. I'm not sure. What does someone drop me a note in chat? Let me know where the difficulty is so we can pin it down.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, that's good. No, that's
all
good.
Right.
That's good. So, all right. Well, I mean, obviously, if you do well in the military, generally speaking, you're probably going to do fairly well outside the military because, discipline is a very good thing to acquire. There's a certain awareness of how you organize your life. I mean, just out of rote. I mean, the military is designed to kind of break you down as a person and then build you up as somebody who does well under, like you said, failure not being an option. So having that behind you, and having those skills, it sounds like you see it as definitely a net positive for you in your creative endeavors, correct?
Yes. It's also with what I got to do. I do some film writing. I've done some directing, and I also do some editing too. Back in 2011, I entered the Nashville 48-hour film festival, in which I spearheaded that whole project. You had 48 hours to make a small film. So like I said, I called upon my old military leadership styles, and I got people together. I say, hey, we're gonna meet up over here. We're going to shoot today. We're going to shoot tomorrow. I need for you to be in town to edit this, so on and so forth. So it enhanced everything that I have naturally with my art skills, as well as learning how to speak to people. Because everybody thinks, in the military you speak so harshly. I said, you do have some of them hardcore nuts off in there like that. But I'm more of a laid back person. I'm one of them kind of people. I'd rather ask you something before I have to tell you. That's just how I am. But I learned to address people. I learned how to speak in front of people, and more importantly, as any artist, you have to learn how to network. If you don't know how to talk to people and sell yourself, get people to see your vision, I mean, you could have all the skill in the world, but it'll mean nothing if you don't know how to talk to people and help them open up avenues or give you information that's going to help you.
Well, for people who don't know, the 48-hour film project is an international contest that goes from city to city to city, and the object of the contest is to write, film, and post-produce a 4 to 7 minute movie in exactly 48 hours. If you show up 2 seconds after that 48-hour deadline, you don't get to compete. And,
you don't.
And then, just between you and me, my very first movie script was written during the 48-hour film project because the person who was supposed to be the script writer turned out to be an actor. He was acting like he could write a script. I was there just to help as an author. And when they told me that they had nobody to write the script, I actually had a nervous breakdown for about an hour and a half. Because we had like 35 people just sitting there waiting for the script. You had prop people waiting to find out what the script was to get props. You had costume people who were going to try to do the costumes. And so it was my first, it was my very first script that I ever wrote. And it took me from about 9:30 till 5 in the morning to write it. because I didn't even know how to write a script. I didn't know what the format was. I had to look it up on Google, and everybody around me was treating me very, very carefully because I think they thought I might go postal or something. So I mean, no, it's a great trial by fire where the skill sets that you have were just perfect for that. And like you said, the communication skills are essential because to try to get people to spend 48 consecutive hours, and most of us don't sleep during a 48-hour film project.
You're right about
that. Them to do it, yeah, and to have that kind of organization. And to be able to manipulate the people into getting the best that you can out of them in such a kind of a stressful situation, because it is a trial by fire. I mean, that's pretty cool that you went through that, and I, my hat's off to you because I went through it too. Now I will brag a little bit. You ready for the bragging?
All right, go ahead.
That script was the very first script that I ever wrote, and I won for best script for Chicago that year, 2009. Yeah, so the very first script I wrote, I won an international award. So yeah, I feel a little puffy about that, but not crazy like. But it's
right.
It's kind of cool, And then for you, was that like your first foray into film, or had you done some things other before that? Tell us a little bit about your experiences and just where they kind of came when you talk about film.
Okay. After I graduated high school, I lived overseas for a brief minute. My stepfather got orders to England, and I was over there. I got a chance to see Great Britain. It was awesome, but it was about the time for me to go ahead and spread my wings, and I returned home to Atlanta, Georgia, where my father was living, and he would give me his video camera, and I had my own little apartment at the time, and I had this idea that I got my own apartment, I'm gonna have parties, I'm gonna have girls, and it was quieter than church mouse off in there. So what I used to do, I would get his camera, and I'll prop it up in there, and I'll be like, "Hi, welcome to the Mark Hill Show. I'm your host, Mark Hill. I don't know who's gonna be on my show today, but if somebody calls, I'm gonna ask them to come by, and they'll be on the show." And I mean, that's the kind of stuff I would do in the beginning. It sounds corny, but it was my first steps into, doing some film. Or like sometimes I would go out and shoot some basketball, and I would have my cousin hold the camera. And, I always say, make sure you get it when I'm making a goal or a shot. You know what I'm saying? Don't get it when I keep missing. Okay. So I learned how to. I started learning how to edit stuff out. Just trial by fire, trial by error, right? So let's fast forward to 2009. I'm here in Nashville. My time with the military is officially over, and I'm in school at ITT Tech, and I had a class in audio visual, and that's when I really got introduced to film 101 per se. I started learning about camera angles, the different types of cameras, the different type of camera lenses, lighting, terminology, right? So my instructor said, okay, before the class is completed, you're going to put together a 6-minute film, okay? And my very first film, it's on my YouTube page. My YouTube page is SirHill70, SirHill 70, all one word.
Right.
My first feature film that I did it was a horror comedy I made up. It was called It Came, I Saw, and I Left. All right. Don't ask me about the title, but basically the whole premise of the movie was, it started off. I used to work for Lowe's Home Improvement here in town, and it started off where you see me at work and I get hassled by potential baby mama, even though she really wasn't. And so on my way home, my car breaks down in the middle of nowhere, at night, and I had no cell phone communication. So imagine being somewhere in the middle of the night by yourself, your car broke down, and you have no means of calling nobody. And the place you're walking around there looks like Sleepy Hollow, okay? So it's starting to creep you out. And actually, what I'm telling you is actually based off a real experience that I had, but that's a whole nother story. But in which way, I had one of my classmates. I said, all right, you're gonna play the psychotic killer. You just put on this paper bag. We cut out 2 eyes for him, and he was chasing me around with a machete, right? And that was the whole movie. He was chasing me around like different parts of the city because it was a play on a lot of horror movies. I said, why is it that whenever the killer comes at you, you run deeper into the forest? Why don't you run over to the 7-Eleven or something, right? So, and this was like I said, part of the whole networking thing. I concluded the film where I ran past this liquor store over in the Donaldson area, right? But before we shot the scene, I walked in and I spoke to the manager of the store. I said, hey, I'm a student at the school right behind you, and I'm shooting a student film. Now, check this out. I'm going to have my guy come in here. He has on a paper bag, and he has a fake machete. Please don't call the cops, and please don't shoot him. We're just shooting a movie. And he was like, all right. He was like, all right, cool, right? So, when he said action, and you saw me run past the liquor store, and he was running past, I ran the guy. You heard him say, "Oh, fuck it," and he walked inside the liquor store. So that's how the movie ended.
Okay.
So that right there is just, I was like, you know what? I really like doing this, right? And my instructor, he did the 48-hour film festival himself that year. He had the whole class go with us over to the Belcourt Theater, and we watched this movie. So I have a real good friend of mine named Jeremy Hack. This young man is brilliant. We work on a lot of projects together, and currently he's in Morgantown, Kentucky, and he has his own video production company. But
okay.
We say, you know what? I said, let's shame him up. Let's enter it next year, and we're gonna outdo this guy, right? So we actually challenged our instructor to the 48-hour film festival for the following year, 2011. So that's where, like I said, I relied on the skills that I got from the military. I got the cast together. We had a meeting. I told them, hey, this is what we're going to do. I need for you to sign these waivers. I'll pay for the interest fee, and I'm going to need you on this day to shoot. I'm going to need you at this time to shoot, because one thing I learned about shooting film is that, when you read the whole script through, you're going to shoot it in different parts. You don't shoot it like from beginning to end like you read it. You're going to shoot it on certain parts, because sometimes the people that you have acting in these films, they can only donate so much of their time, so you have to shoot them first.
Sure.
So yeah, that's what I did. Like I said, I got the people together, and as far as the script now, people who like I said, if you ever meet somebody that knows me personally, I'm gonna tell you, I'm a class clown. I've always had a real wide range of humor. I like to make people laugh, but I do it so naturally. I just have a real corny sense of humor at times. So when we got the genre that we was gonna shoot the movie about, it was a coming of age, and basically the movie is about a transition. The guy started off point A as kind of like a bum, and at the end of the movie, he's like on his feet doing better about himself, right? If you look on my YouTube page, the movie that I shot for the 48-hour film festival is called Another Slice of Life, in which I wrote, actually I co-wrote it and I directed it. But this is what we did. We just sat at the table real quick, and that's all right. This movie's about transition, right? And I sat with 2 other people, and we just kind of, I took input for everybody else, and I just put it all together. All right.
Mm-hmm.
I played a character called Dr. Smoothie Deluxe, motivational speaking pimp. I had the wig on and everything, and my friend Jeremy Hack, like I told you, I went to school with. He's in the movie too, in which he edited the whole film. I had him come into town 4:00 in the morning before, the last day before you turn in the film. I had him come. We shot the last scene around 4:00, and that right after we got shooting that last scene, he went on ahead and edited it, and he gave it back to me, and I dropped it off at the place where you drop off the film. But like I said, we just went at it, and we had a lot of fun. Like I said, I played a motivational speaking pimp, and I just basically said, if your life sucks, you're not doing it right, and get my book called Success for Dummies. And it was real crazy because I kept some of the outtakes, when we were shooting. It was real funny because I was trying to get the right kind of feel for that character, and the more and more I kept at it, I figured it out. But I said, yeah, I said I did that. That was really cool. And when we went to the premiere, at the same Belcourt Theater, a lady named Deborah Gordon. She's over the chapter here in Nashville, and she saw me in the aisle because I was trying to get everybody that was in the film to sit with me, right? And she walked up to me. She said, "You're Mark Hill, aren't you?" I said, "Yes, I am." She said, "We like your work." And I was just like, wow, that kind of, I didn't win or nothing, but it blew me away. And then, when my film showed on the big screen, man, I just listened for all the laughs and stuff, and I was just like, yeah, that's what I wanted. I didn't care if I won or not, but that's what I wanted. The crowd reaction, like people was just laughing their ass off. So I was like, yeah, this is another notch of something that I could really, pursue and push to the limits, like my comic book art. So right now, I'm writing out a script for my very first feature-length film about a black superhero I created called the Black Dynamo. I've designed the suit and everything. I'm actually kind of redesigning it at the moment. My skills in the military. I used to do power generation, which is supplying electrical power. So I know how to play with electricity and electronics a little bit. So I'm hooking the suit up to where it lights up and stuff, and even trying to get a microphone inside the helmet. So when I talk, it'll have like a reverb, and my voice will be a little more distorted. And I showed people the suit, and they just really tripped out, So I'm like, yeah, I'm currently writing out the script right now, and I'm talking to a few people about really helping me to go in on this. It's going to be incredibly low budget because, like I said, I don't have the finance or capital at the moment. But the one thing I've noticed when you don't have a lot of money, you tend to be more creative.
Well, sure. I mean, I think the ultimate street hustler filmmaker for all of us would be Spike Lee. His early years when he didn't pay for permits, he didn't pay for this. It was guerrilla film style, and we do that here in Chicago too. I think like every city, like when you have the 48-hour film project come to your city, the police are very, very lenient because they know that the contest is going on. You can't pull permits on a Saturday and stuff like that. But see, that creativity, being able to do it for less or being able to do it in a way that you don't normally see it done, or just figuring out things that you wouldn't have done normally. I think that's the essence of exposing the creativity of a film producer. Even a director, even your director of photography. Being able to do things on a nickel or do things that are imaginative. I think that's where a lot of our really good talent shows up. So you're going to you've got a script for your first feature. Have you done a budget for it or anything like that?
No, not yet. Like I said, I'm still putting the script together. I'm like a third of the way done. Because like I'm not gonna say I'm a perfectionist. I don't believe I could ever be perfect. No human can ever be perfect. But I try to get as close to perfect. Usually what I do is like I'll type out 3 or 4 different scenes, right? And then I'll put it down for a day or two, and then I come back and I read it, and I'll say, hey, this is a little choppy, or hey, this isn't long enough, or maybe I need to cut this a little bit. So I just, I get real critical of my work because I feel like if I'm going to put my name on something that people are going to see and it's going to be in the public eye, I don't want, people to shoot holes all through my work. Right. I can take criticism. Every artist must be able to handle criticism, but why handle criticism when you don't have to a degree, when you can sit back and you can, be critical of your own work. That's where critical thinking comes in, As far as a budget, now I'm working on a few things. I'm seeing if I can do a GoFundMe or something like that, and I'm going to see if I can have somebody help me with the marketing of it because, I can do certain things, but I know I can't do everything, and that's where you have to rely on other people who have another skill set to, market your stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or who knows how.
Yeah, also experience helps. You and I are probably in a very, very similar place. I want to do my first feature film next year. I have a budget of about $2.5 million, and I have probably the people. I have the funding for it. Let's just say that. But in order to get that funding, I had to do some very, very disciplined things that most filmmakers, especially in their early years, don't do. You know, I did a budget for the movie. I did the call sheets to show the justification for the budget. I did a like a $75,000 trailer, which I actually got done for $130 worth of food. Talking about your creativity right there, you know, to be able to do, you know, get $65,000 worth of work out of people and just feeding them, that ain't bad. But the fact of the matter is, the more creative people will find ways of overcoming the hurdles in some of the most creative ways, you know. So just between you and me, after the show is done, if you want to get together, you know, or talk about finding money, because that's always the hardest part for doing independent film, is finding money. I have some pretty good ideas on how I might be able to help you do that. And I don't say that out of any big ego, but I say that out of wanting everybody to have a level of success. You know, I want you to be successful at whatever you do. And if you didn't think about these 2 or 3 ways of doing it, I give them away, because the more that we support each other as Black artists, the better off everybody is. And I bitched, you know, probably I quit bitching about it maybe about 6, 7, 8 months ago on the show, but there's a zero-sum mentality with a lot of Black artists where they feel that if they help somebody else and somebody else is successful, that successful person has actually plucked money out of their pocket. And that's just not so. There's enough cool things going on, and there's enough cool people out there doing things that we all can have a decent yield on our work. So seriously, let's get in touch later on, and I'll tell you exactly how I got $2.5 million for my first feature movie, which is crazy ass money. That's crazy money. People don't get that kind of money, but people will give you that kind of money under certain conditions. You know, if they think that you absolutely know what you're doing, that's a huge, huge hurdle to get over.
I mean, I totally agree.
We'll talk about that later. We don't want to bore the hell out of everybody here about, you know, some inside baseball about film. But you and I both know getting that funding to pay everybody to do, you know, to do post production, to put together enough money so that you can send out submissions to film festivals and things like that. That's expensive. All of that's expensive. All of that costs money. And figuring out how to pay for it is, I think, the universal challenge that film creatives all have. So I'd be happy to do that. Excuse me. Do you have? You said you have the script is already done?
No, it's still in production, because like I said, you know, I typed out about at least 4 to 5 scenes, and you know, like I said, you know, the one thing about the creative process, and you feel me on this. Some days you're on, it's like, oh, I'm flowing through this real cool, you know, and the next day it's like I can't think, I can't get nothing coming out. So, and you know, I'm a firm believer in, if it's not flowing, just step off for a second. You know what I'm saying? Maybe you need to take a breath or whatever.
Well, your mind is telling you something. You know, your own mind is telling you that, well, it's just not going to come today.
Right. And the one thing I used to do in my past what was wrong, I used to force myself, and I noticed that my work was crappy and it just didn't look right. So whenever I go through, you know, artist block or writer block, I just take my hands off of it. You know, usually what's good for me is I get out and I be amongst people. I go out and do stuff. I don't care if it's just going to the grocery store or, you know, going to a restaurant. It's just, you know, getting your mind off of it for a second and refreshing yourself and coming back to it. That's how I work with, you know, my stuff. And also, you know, what you just said about, you know, even the you know, sharing the information. And I say this, I totally and 100% agree. Because, you know, we as Black people, you know, we really got to work together. We have to work together in order to be successful. And then one thing, like I say, I took this away from the military too. Imagine I'm your supervisor, and I'm the guy that's recommending you for your awards and your promotions and all that. I use key words when I deal with people. I say we, us. Let us do something. Let us do this together. It's not about
right.
me. It's about us. It's about us. And I notice when you share power, it's returned to you. That's one thing I've learned.
Everybody has a stake. I mean, that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You want, and yeah, you get it. You get the trial by fire when you're in a foxhole. But that's not necessarily what you want. What you want to do is you want to build that kind of consensus around you.
Right.
Let's do this.
Right.
Let's shift gears a little bit. I mean, it sounds like you're probably going to be doing film for a long time. Since you've got the Space Safarians, and for those of you who want to look up the website, I popped it into chat, but it's www.thespacesafarians.com if you want to check out his characters. Have you considered, I know you draw, you got the characters, you got all of this, you got the comic, and with the preview and everything, have you considered the possibility of animating this concept of yours?
Man, hell yeah, I have. And I would truly say, if that would be the only thing that I did in my lifetime, let's say if I put this movie out and, I kicked the bucket the next, I would feel like I fulfilled my life journey as an artist. I would be a complete man.
Okay, you're falling out a little bit.
That's going to be the movie that's going to put me on that's truth. Okay. That's going to be the movie that's really going to put me on the map, because you understand this is something I've been with the development of the characters, 3D art. 3D animation movie. I like 2D, but 2D is yesteryear. 3D is where it's at now. I say I've already, I'll just say it like this. I did what it is I want. I already figured out these are certain people I want to play certain characters, because when I hear people talk, it's like, yeah, that's the kind of voice I want to add to. Like, for example, I'll name off the Space Safarians. The Safarians are a team of 5 individuals, the original members, because there's a total of 15 of them. But the first story that I'm working on right now, it previews the first 5 original members. The leader is Cosmic Cat. You have a character called Agent Rovers, Kangaroo Star, and Megamut. Cosmic Cat being the leader, he's kind of like the sophisticated, comes from another world, very powerful. He's like a blend of Superman meets the Silver Surfer. Okay, so I want a sophisticated type person. I was thinking at first, I was like, yeah, I like Idris Elba. I like the way his voice sounds. I was like, yeah, I get the right kind of management behind me. We gonna sit down and talk. Agent Rovers. I don't really watch the show. I've seen it. My girlfriend was like, she watched that show called Empire. Taraji P. Henson. I said, yeah, I want her to play my Agent Rovers character. Kangaroo, Mike Epps, because we all seen him as Day Day and Friday, or about the Benjamins. Kangaroo is kind of like the funny guy of the group. Hamstar. And I really been thinking, I want Cat Williams. I really do. I know he's got some issues, but I really want him. And then Megamut is going to be Snoop Dogg. So,
Well, that's going to be expensive right there in terms of voice talent.
That's true, but you know what? I feel like this. If you're gonna do something, I saw this out of one of my old drill sergeants. He had a plaque on his wall, and what it said still, resonates with me to this day. Is if you're gonna do something, do it all the fucking way.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying, don't half step. So if this is what I want, I'm gonna push it till I get it. Somehow, some way. I believe in the old adage: if there's a will, there's a way. So,
I wasn't saying that to dissuade you. at all. I was saying
no,
that in terms of ambition, I think that's great because, you know, you might as well shoot for what you want rather than settle for what you think you're going to get. Because that's like pushing for failure. You know what I mean?
Exactly. You know, especially with these characters, like I said, these are like basically my own children. I said I made them up when I was a teenage boy. So I've been, you know, dealing with these characters for years. So when I got to a point where I said, hey, they're ready, but I said in order for the real magic to happen, I said I have to have these particular voices. And I said somehow, some way, it's a matter of, like you said, you have to surround yourself around the right kind of people that'll help you achieve your common goal. I know it's gonna go down. For example, I've done some work for R&B group from the 80s. If you remember, there was a group in the 80s called The System, and their biggest song is called "Don't Disturb This Groove." And what happened was, with that being said, their page was on Facebook, so I sent them an instant message. I was like, hey, I want to use one of your songs in an upcoming video short that I'm trying to put together. The lead singer, Mick Murphy, he hit me back, and he said, sure. He said, you can draw. I saw your work. And before you know it, this guy gave me a phone call. And
nice.
He was kind of like, yeah, he was my first, you know, touch into that realm. So I was like, okay, you know, I realized through networking and talking to people, you can get yourself into a certain place. So with that being said, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to eventually find somebody that can present me, because I know for a fact, like, let's say if I was trying to pitch this to DreamWorks or Marvel or something, I know I have to have somebody that's going to bring me in first before I walk in and say, hey, I'm Mark Hill. I'm this guy that can draw these characters. I have to have somebody that represents me. So with that being said, you know, I'm going to be looking for talent management, talent agent, whatever you want to call it. Because like I said, sometimes these are the people that can get you into places that you yourself can't get into.
Right.
So with that being said, you know, when I sit back and say, in all sincerity, I want these people to play my characters, I say, you know, come hell or high water, I'm going to make it happen. Because one thing that I can truly say that has benefited me in my life as an adult, I've learned to use my words correctly. You know, when you start speaking positive things into your life, you bring it into existence. You know, instead of saying, oh, you know, I'm this guy that draws this comic book, but, you know, I don't think nobody's going to dig it. Well, guess what? Nobody's going to dig it. But when I start saying, hey, I'm this guy that draws this comic book, it's a great concept, I'm pretty sure given the right circumstance, it's going to blow up. Well, guess what? It's going to blow up. And I can truly say from the latter part of 2015 up until now, I mean, things have started to really pick up for me because I really start speaking a lot of positive things into existence. I start, you know, saying I can, I will, I do. Those are my watchwords. I can, I will, and I do. Yeah, I always say as far as what my skill set is concerned, I always say, you know, I have the utmost faith that I can do anything because I don't believe in just being mediocre. You know what I'm saying? That might be fine for somebody else, but, you know, for somebody that's been hungry for so many years, and then trust and believe, I'm hungry. I'm fighting for mine. I'm going to get, you know, what I feel like that I'm owed. So I'm going to go, you know, to the fullest extreme. So like I said, that when I made the comment, when I was in the Army, I was in basic training, I looked on my drill sergeant's wall, and like I said, on his plaque, it said, if you're going to do something, do it all the fucking way. Don't half-step. And I'm a firm believer in it. I'm a firm believer in half-step.
Yeah, and the other half of that is failure is not an option. And a lot of people don't, I mean, they hear the words, they sort of understand the concept, but when you actually chart, let's say the you know, the kinds of things that you have to go through, you know, the kinds of maybe loss, the kinds of putting yourself out there, the kinds of sacrifice that it takes. make sure that failure is not an option, that's something that's very hard to convey to people, especially people who've never been in the military. But that's not that easy a concept to instill in other people. And when you have that failure is not an option attitude, you look at life a whole different way. You look at life as just a series of milestones that you have to reach. And I think that having the discipline to mentally do that is something that everyone could benefit from. But that's not something they teach in school, at least not most schools.
No, that's not. That's actually something that should be instilled in you growing up. And I would say, check this out. I'm going to give you an analogy. Sometimes I see a lot of life lessons in movies and even in some of the cartoons. Like, for example, I was a big fan of the original Transformer cartoon series, G1, as they call it now, right? The one that came on in the 80s. Now, let's throw that failure is not an option into that series I'm talking about. And now, we all know Megatron is Optimus Prime's arch enemy, right? And if you remember the cartoon series, every episode Megatron was defeated. Even though sometimes he got the upper hand and sometimes he made this machine that could do this, or sometimes he transformed into that gun and, shot Optimus Prime with it. But at the end, he still lost. But if you remember the movie that came out in 86, what happened? Megatron finally conquered Cybertron. Even though he had a ton of losses, he took a ton of losses. Towards the end of all, he never gave up his goal of dominating Cybertron. He dominated Cybertron. He ran off the Autobots off their own homeworld, and then ultimately, in the end, he killed Optimus Prime. Now, who remembers that movie? You know exactly what I'm talking about. So the life lesson even out of that movie, even though this is a bad guy, but just take it for what I'm saying. He took a lot of losses. He took a lot of L's, as they say. He took a lot of losses, but you know what? He still kept at it, and then eventually, he got what he wanted. You see what I'm saying? And sometimes, even though, like I said, I've had the privilege of being in the military and being taught that, but realistically speaking, even if you was never a day in the military, you look at some of the great scientists of yesteryear. I'm pretty sure before they made that great, wonderful thing that we use so much today, they just didn't put it together overnight and it worked. I'm pretty sure whatever, I'm just using it as an example.
Here's the best example. Thomas Edison went through 99 different versions of the light bulb before he came to the one that worked.
Exactly.
Think about that. 99 times he failed, but he didn't stop until he got it.
Exactly. And that's how you have to be. When you are, and I'll also say with me is I'm very passionate about my work. I'm very passionate as an artist. I've met a lot of people who've had artistic skill, but they'll always say, I used to be able to draw when I was younger, but I stopped doing it and I can't really draw anymore. Well, that says to me you wasn't as passionate as I am. I'm like, my art is like basically my left and right hand. I have to have them. I can't live without them. You know what I'm saying? I'm very passionate about what I do. So therefore, and don't get it misconstrued. I've taken a lot of L's in my lifetime. And some of them have been personal family matter, the issues I took some losses with. But it never deterred me from my goal. You know what I'm saying? Because if this is something that you want, you got to want it so bad that you're willing to walk through hell and back to get it. And that's the way that I am,
Yeah, but that goes back to that concept of sacrifice.
Exactly. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Hang on a second. You're listening to the Genesis Science Fiction Radio Show, a service of the blacksciencefictionsociety.com website. This is the, what did I say, April 22nd edition, and our special guest tonight is Mark Hill, former military man, author, filmmaker, artist, determined individual for whom failure is not an option. And that's not just a catchphrase either. There are some people who put feet to words, Let me ask you this. In terms of putting together your space safarians, you you do the artwork and you also do the story behind it, right?
Correct.
Okay, and so far, is this kind of like a singular endeavor, or do you have help behind you, editorial help, or anything like this? Give us a little idea of kind of your process of creation.
Okay, basically, you would say pretty much I am a one-man show. The only thing that I don't do is the proofreading, because I mean, you know, when you get to writing and these ideas are flowing out your head, not unless you're just exemplary with your grammar and word structuring and stuff, it's just gonna come out. So, you know, I had for the first book that's out right now, that's on indieplanet.com, the Space Safaris first issue. I had one of my former coworkers. I used to work at Office Depot, and she was really good at English. And I asked her, hey, can you proofread my book for me? And she did, and I paid her for it. I would say out of the whole process, when it comes down to proofreading, I usually get another set of eyes on it. So when somebody reads my book, they're like, hey, this guy can draw, but he talks like an idiot. When it comes down to, you know what I'm saying? So when it comes down to the whole process, like, okay, the storyline, the actual artwork, I do the storyline, I do the breakdowns, which is the penciling, I do the inking myself, and I do all the coloring on Photoshop.
Right.
And, this is because, like I said earlier, that when I started drawing, I started creating these guys, I was just putting together these little books and I was coloring with crayons, okay? So you figured I was doing that at 12 years of age, and now here I am, I'm 45 years of age, and I got technology now. I'm like, hell, I can do this all myself. And I remember one comic book convention, I actually showed this one independent guy, the Space Safarians, and he said, let me get this straight. You draw the comic? I said, yeah. You do the coloring? I said, yeah. You write the storyline? I said, yeah. He said, man, I pay people to do all three of those things that you do by yourself. I said, you have to understand. You have to understand. You know, this is a ghetto comic book that I created. Okay, so you know, I didn't have a whole lot of people to say, hey man, I'll do the inking for you, or hey man, I'll do the coloring for you, or I'll do the words. I just did it all myself because, like I said, I've always been a self-contained individual growing up. You know, this is my love, this is my passion. So I just learned through the years to get better at it. And then, you know, what also helps is, like, I read novels from time to time, and I'm real critical of storylines. I'll watch a movie, and let's say I bought a movie, I'll watch that shit about 15 times, and I'll say, you know, I see a weakness in the storyline. How come this is this way when it should be that way? Even though I'm not the author of this storyline, but I'm just being critical of it because that's what you have to do. So I put all that into what I do. You know what I'm saying? I do all that. But like I said, when it comes down to the post-production, as far as the proofreading, yeah, I actually have somebody, you know, go over and say, hey, all right, you need to change this, you know, put this hyphen here, or put this comma there, or take this word out, put this word in, you know.
Well, I mean,
because like
that's
I said,
a necessity. But that's a necessity because I don't think anybody can edit their own work better than someone who didn't write it can. You know,
right.
In my own case, you know, I'll write a chapter, I'll go through it a couple times, you know, and inevitably I will miss something because my brain tells me, oh yeah, it's exactly what you thought it was, when in fact I used the wrong it's or it's, you know, or I used, you know, something like that.
Right.
Because we're the easiest people to fool ourselves, you know.
Right. Because
so that
you,
makes a lot of sense. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Right. Because because when you're in the moment of your creation, when you're in the moment of putting it all together, it's like you're just making the most awesomest thing there is, right? And which it is. I wouldn't dare take away from nobody's, you know, commitment to their
creativity.
Work.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Because creativity is just, you know, creativity is not 2 + 2 = 4. Creativity is 2 + 2 = whatever. You see what I'm saying? But
right.
when you bring it back down to earth and you're ready to put it out there for the world to see, you got to get those fine, refined details put in there. So, like I said, you know, people will be like, oh, this guy is the shit as an artist. Like, golly, he can't talk worth nothing. You know, so you know, that's, and I understand exactly what you say with that. You know, you have to know exactly where you start and where you stop as the artist, and you know, look towards somebody and say, hey, can you read this over for me, please? Because you know, I don't want people to think I skipped third grade or something.
All right, so I mean, you've got all of these irons in the fire. You've got the will to proceed, the will to create, the will to get it done, and to get it done well. And do you mind me asking you how old you are right now?
I'm 45. I'll be 46 this July.
Yeah, so you got a ton of years ahead of you, you know, to do so many things, and it sounds like that you've still got the energy, you know. So what I like about all that is that it kind of presages a lot of creative output from you, you know, in the future for a while. Okay, so let's jump ahead. Let's imagine, let's say, you know, 5 years from now. In 5 years from now, what do you see having been done? And what do you see as where you think you're going to be going? I mean, that's not too far a jump to look ahead, but obviously you've got a plan. You've got a plan for yourself, right?
Right. I got a definite plan, but also I have a vision. Let me tell you something. This is very special. What I'm about to share with you. It was around the November time frame of last year. And this is, you know, I'm working on the first issue that's currently out there right now. And I was turning on my laptop and I was turning on my music. You know, I was going to get to work. And I said to myself, I've worked too hard for all this to fail. And I put this on everything. I put this on my children. I heard a voice that spoke to me. And the voice said, Mark, you've done everything for everybody else. Now it's time to do something for yourself. Just believe in you. And no sooner as I heard that voice, I saw it. It was like, you know how you go to the movies and you see the previews for the upcoming movies, right? I saw the Space Safarians. I saw them move. I don't know, maybe I ate some bad ramen noodles. I don't know. But I saw my stuff move. I didn't hear the audio of their voices. But I heard the narration in which I did a video in the likeness of what I'm telling you. And it basically said, join us on the funkiest cosmic hip-hop ride throughout the galaxy with the furriest super creatures that the universe has ever known, the Space Safarians. Sure. And like I said, you know, and the cool thing about it is the music selection. I always say this, too, about film. You know, your music has to be on point. It has to match the tempo and the mood of your movie. And because, you know, I said earlier in the interview that I grew up listening to a lot of that electro-funk hip-hop music, that's going to be definitely incorporated into this film. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to get in touch with the legendary Juan Atkins, the man who came from a group called Cybertron. One of my favorite cuts called Clear, and I'm pretty sure for your old hip hop heads, you know, you heard that. Matter of fact, that song Missy Elliott had called "Music Makes Me Lose Control." That old hip hop, the beat in the background, that's a song called Clear. So I'm like, that will be definitely incorporated into my thing. But like I said, I had this vision, and man, it was just so real to me. It re-energized me. And, you know, I went on ahead and I completed the book that's out there right now, and I'm currently working on the second one as we speak. But my plan also with this vision that I saw, I don't know where or when, but it's somewhere in my near future. I saw me at an award show, and basically I won Best Animated Film or something like that. Basically, the Space Safarians become an underground hit. It's like how Star Wars started off. It started off as kind of like an underground hit that just blew up. So, where I see myself within the next 5 years, yes, this will come to pass because I'm on point to making it happen, and I'm surrounding myself with people who can point me in the direction or even help me along the way. I see, like I said, I see the Space Safarians being a household name. I see myself at some of these, you know, bigger conventions. I see the Black Dynamo, my first, real venture into full-length feature movies. I see that out there too, and also I see myself doing other things along the same line with film. But I see myself in my later years as a teacher, as somebody that would not so much like on a collegiate level or even high school. I'm basically like, hey, if you know me, you know where I live. If you need help, I'll show you. I do not mind. I don't mind sharing information and knowledge. As a matter of fact, that's one thing. When you have learned something throughout your years, you have to instruct the next generation coming up. For example, I have two sons, my oldest boy, and then I have a daughter. She's my middle child. My daughter picked up my talent. She can draw, and I plan on, because I'm planning on moving back out to the Washington State area where they reside in a little while myself. I plan on instructing her because I've seen her skill set. She's right on the point where I was, because she's 16 years old. She's at the point I was at 12 as far as her drawing skills. And I said, all I got to do now is introduce her to the technology, and that's going to take it even further because she lives out there by Microsoft country. I mean, come on.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I also see the Space Safari as being a video game as well. So I'm putting a lot of.
So you got a busy life ahead of you.
Oh yeah, it's what I want. For example, the one thing that I took from Jack King Kirby, like I said, one of the greatest comic book artists there ever was. He didn't get put on with Marvel until his 40s, and he said it himself. Right. He said life started for me at 40. So here I am. I'm in my mid 40s, going into my early late 40s. And right. I'm like, I say to myself, if you come around me, you'll find out I'm a big kid at heart. I still collect stuff. I collect figurines. I have this gigantic red Camaro that's on this pedestal ahead on top of me. You know what I'm saying? I watch science fiction movies. I used to work at Lowe's. Hell, I walked into the plumbing department. And I put together a lightsaber out of some plumbing parts, and it looks just like a real one. So I'm a big kid at heart. It was the old saying that said, a creative person is the kid that survived. So I am still that kid. I still maintain my youthful mindset, you know what I'm saying? But it's also reinforced. It's also reinforced by my adult experiences and my knowledge. So therefore I remain, young in the game, with this creative thing that I do. I believe in not being stagnant. I believe in, being around other artists and whatnot. It like I said, we feed off each other's energy. So, like I said, as we talk about the future, like I said, people are going to know who I am because I feel like I'm destined for this, because this is something that I was born with this skill set, and I strongly believe in. If God gave you something, you better use it. So yeah, I feel like. I really feel like this is something that I'm going to do with myself. I'm going to push my talents to the furthest limit. So when my day is done, I leave behind a legacy for my children. Because I will truly say that one of my biggest thrills is when my oldest son, when he was younger, I show and tell. He took one of my pieces of artwork to his school, and he said, "Yeah, my daddy did this," and everybody just freaked out. So I'm saying I'm doing this as a two-part project. One part is for me, but also this is something that I will impart to my children when my time is done on this world. I want to leave behind, this is Mark Hill. This is what he did. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be that guy that Mark Hill, that guy, he could draw, he had the skills, but it's not gonna be any buts. It's gonna be, this man put it down. He changed the game. He opened the door for a lot of people.
Whoa! I mean, you come on. Let's not talk like that. You're in your mid-40s. That nonsense isn't going to happen for 30, 40 years now. Okay. All right. So you don't have to. You don't have to. You don't have to.
Hey, look. Hey, I look far ahead. Trust me. I look very far ahead because, being at the age that I am now, I'm like, hey, right. The older you get, you start looking down the road a little bit more. And the one thing that Yeah, and the one thing that I see out of a lot of adults, I say, we all got our own fair share of regrets that we gonna have in our lifetime. We all did some things that ain't, beautiful. But I said the one thing I don't want is, if I live to be a very old man, I don't want to look back on my life with, well, I could have did this or I could have did that, but I did. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
So
and then okay, let's take, I'm about 20 years older than you are. And so let's look at the difference. When I look at what I'm going to be doing and what I have left that I want to do, I fully realize that I've got fewer years ahead of me than I have behind me. And so my perspective is probably a little different. And I'll tell you what's really sad about when you get older is you understand why that old man on the porch is telling the kids to get the hell out of his yard. He's played out, he's angry. But I think that one of the things that helps keep me young is the fact that I do creative things. And by doing creative things, first of all, I'm in touch with other creative people and other creative people of all ages, because that creativity thing is not. Somebody put in the chat room that you're not born with a skill set. You're born with a gift, and being able to be around other people who are gifted and maybe learning how to enhance or grow or produce or acquire a skill set, that's still pretty exciting. Okay, so hearing that you're getting ready to do your first feature movie, I get excited about that, because that means somebody's doing something out of his box. Okay, something that, you weren't born as a rich-ass movie producer. You know what I mean?
Right.
You're not there with everything ready to go. You're there saying, okay, I got 3 parts. I got 9 more parts of stuff to get. That's what I'm going to do. And see, I think that knowledge, that focus brings out the best in creatives, and also the inability to do it might be the thing that prevents or discourages, other creative people from doing what it is they should be doing. So I see it as an older creative. Part of what I should be doing is nurturing those who want to do cool stuff. You know what I mean?
Right. The thing is, teach one, each one. You know what I'm saying? Just like as you said, I've run into people, younger than me, and it's like, hey, this is how you do this. Oh, really? Because one thing I don't do, one thing I do not do, and I've seen a few people who have, talent. Don't let your ego surpass your talent. I keep myself humble, because the one time that I let my ego get out of check, and somebody put it in check real quick. When I back in the early 2000s, when I used to live in Washington State, I was stationed out at Fort Lewis, and I love Seattle. That's a beautiful city. I love that area. I love that country. It's something about that place I'm in love with. I got recommended to attend school at the Art Institute, because I saw the commercial. I said, you know what, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to show them what I can do, and so on and so forth. So I went up there and I spoke to one of the counselors. I showed him all my work, and the first thing he said, I can tell you're a passionate person and you have a great talent. He said, usually we let a board convene and they look at your work and they determine if you belong here. He said, I'm sorry, but you belong here. So automatically I was like, oh, wow, the lights came on. I was happy and everything, but at the same time, my ego kind of got out of whack. And my first class was in perspective drawing. I said, I've been drawing comic books. I've been drawing these buildings for years. What's he going to teach me? And this guy, he put together a whole cityscape within 5 minutes. And I just said, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy. You are my Obi-Wan. You know what I'm saying? So it really humbled me. And so with that being said, I take knowledge and I take advice from others, that's not destructive. I know the difference between destructive and constructive criticism. But if somebody, a little bit younger than me say, hey, Mark, this is what you ought to do, or check this out, or look into this, I'll check it out, because if it's going to benefit me in the long run, I don't care if it came from a 2-year-old, okay? if it's going to help me out, it's going to help me out. Knowledge is knowledge, and it doesn't matter, from what age range or even sex it comes from. I noticed, like I said, in agreeing with you as you get older, I really believe this is the right time for me, because when I was in my 20s and my 30s, I was doing the military thing, I was doing the family thing, and I wasn't as focused as I am now. Now
right.
I have a crystal clarity picture of what exactly is I want to do, and with the knowledge that I've gained throughout the years, like I said, learning how to talk to people. And let me say this real quick so people don't misconstrue this. When I say the word use, understand there's two words that people need to understand. We all here to be used. It's the misuse of somebody that we don't want to do. So, use people in the right way to help me, then yes. But I'm not going to misuse or mistreat nobody, because I don't want nobody to do it to me or even do it to my children. So I've learned to, like I said, use people in the right places that can help me get to some other plateau that I need to be on. But my whole thing is this, too. I don't care if I don't make it there before you do, or if I make it there before you do. My thing is, as long as I make it there, because I always said this to everybody. I said, hey, Mark, if you get up there, we know you're going to make it. Don't forget about us little people. I said, let me tell you something. It's enough room at the top. I said, I'm not opening the door. I'm kicking that shit down, okay? We all coming up here. We all going to sit at the table and eat. I'm not a greedy person. I love to see my people get on. I really do. Because, for so long, when you say black science fiction, you're a nerd, because you always had this, you always had, black guys are too cool for this kind of stuff. And like I said, I was picked on coming on through my years, but as I got older and I got comfortable with myself, I'm like, the hell would anybody else say? Because if you're not adding to what I'm trying to do, I don't care about your opinions. Opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one. I'm firmly into blacks gaining more ground through business and through using their talents to get ahead. I mean, why not use something that was, like you said, a gift that was given to you? Why not use that to make a living for yourself? Because realistically speaking, I would love to wake up every day, wake up when I feel like it, come into my art room, turn on my music, and draw to my heart's content. That would be an ultimate job, and I'm getting paid for it. So,
yeah.
So I say, if whoever makes it first, turn around and stick your hand down and pull somebody up. Because I hate seeing people who make it and just totally forget about everybody else. Because to me, that says you're destined to fall anyway. So, like I said, I make it up there. I'm gonna kick that door down.
But you know what they say? All the people that you meet on the way up are the same people who are going to watch your ass on the way down.
Exactly. And I can truly say I saw that in the military. I really, for real, I've seen people make rank, and I've seen people get that shit snatched off their collar and fall dead on their face, too. So like I said, I stay humble about mine. Yes, people say, you're a great artist. Yeah, I'm good at what I do. I'm very good at what I do. You know what I'm saying? And I'm great because I say, you speak those positive words to yourself, and I'm not saying it in the form of arrogance. Yes, I am a great artist, but I'm also a humble man. I'm very simple in my ways. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, if somebody can say, hey, let me show you how to draw this way, let me show you how to use this computer program to enhance what you do, I will sit there, take note, listen, whatever, because it's going to help me in the long run. And at the same time, it builds a camaraderie with that person.
Well, and you know what? All of the things that you're doing, you want to animate your cartoon. You want to do other feature films. All of these things that you want to do, if we're to be entirely honest, are things that require the assistance of other people.
Right.
For me to do a feature film, I'm going to have to rely on 50 or more people to get it done. And you know what?
Right.
You can't. First of all, you can't do that well if you're an asshole. Okay, and people should just get that through their heads. Just because you're the lead guy doesn't mean that you don't have to treat people with the proper respect and dignity. And second of all, part that you talked about, learning from other people, I'll be the first person to tell you that I don't know everything about film. Okay, I just don't. I don't know how to light stuff. The thing that I do best is write the words. Okay, but even for a comic, writing the words is only one small part of the entirety of the whole thing you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I think that we're seeing more and more people realizing that networking and cooperating is not, we're getting past the way we were bred. And the way we were bred was to always have that house Negro versus field Negro mentality about doing anything, anything. And once you get away from that and you find out that there's a whole egalitarian world out there where people are hanging out together, they're doing things together, they're helping each other learn how to do things, sometimes that's quite the revelation to people, and it requires a personal paradigm shift that sometimes can be very, very difficult. But I mean, and then the other part of it is as you said, is as you climb higher, dropping your hand down to bring some people up with you, specifically young people. Okay, young people are getting shortchanged on education anyway, because you know what? It's the policy of the United States of America to not educate its citizens, because stupid MFs are easily led MFs. They can't protect themselves. They can't defend themselves. They can't help other people. And so the dumber you are, the more the people who run stuff love it. And here's the other part. The other part that I'm watching with so much interest and so much fun and more than a little glee is the fact that right now there's kind of like the concept of the meme of Afrofuturism, and what's cool about it is because it came about because the challenge, the bar, the threshold of publishing, of animating, of writing, of anything has been lowered because of digital tools. I mean, if you had to, like you said, you can do your writing, you can do your inking, you can do your illustrating, you can do that all by yourself. And the reason you can do that is because some pretty damn sophisticated tools have been created so that you could be a one-man shop. But here's the deal. Our ideas are new. First of all, Black urban culture rules the world. Right, it rules the world in terms of music. It rules the world in terms of style of dressing. Black culture rules the world. The trick is to make sure that your portion of what you're presenting to Black culture is not co-opted or stolen from you by somebody else, maybe somebody white. I'm not going to accuse that. But see, here's the deal. We're very creative people, and that's out of necessity. Because first of all, we were born of an oral history, and the oral history and the memes of mysticism, and even the basis for some religious leanings, all of that came from within, and that's a creativity that has not been. It's nowhere near tapped. Okay, we have so much cool stuff that we can do that other people are going to want to see. Because you know what? How many times can you redo Spider-Man? How many times can you redo Dukes of Hazzard? How many times can you redo the TV shows of the 70s because you are bankrupt of new ideas? Well, we're not bankrupt of new ideas. See, that's not us. So here's the thing. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. To go on what you were saying with that, I totally agree. Because, first of all, like I say, I've really been getting into our history. You know what I'm saying? What they say, black man and woman are the first people of the planet. You know what I'm saying? We were here the first. We were here. We put civilization into motion. Okay, and when you look at our ancient cultures, Egypt, or better known as Kemet, or Kush, or Timbuktu, Nubia, we put together the sciences, the arts, the literature. You know what I'm saying? We taught the world. And yes, we all know that, we went through slavery and all that. But even in the midst of all that, we still were innovators. We just lost one of our greater performers, Prince. You know what I'm saying? This man,
he was a rock star creator, and I mean rock star in that top tier talent. One of the most creative musicians in the history of our country, and the proof of that is look at all these white media outlets who have had nothing but wall-to-wall Prince coverage for the last 24 hours.
Exactly. He has influenced. I would say the only guitarist that I would say that's just one tier above him was Jimi Hendrix himself. But even still in the essence of Prince, he has transformed the music game, just like Michael Jackson, previous to him. Those two pretty much put the world on notice. You know what I'm saying? I remember back in the 80s when MTV, first came on air when they still showed music videos. I remember back in the day, we could be out shooting some hoop or something. Somebody say, hey, there's a new Michael Jackson video. There's a new Prince video. Man, that playground was empty. Okay?
Yeah,
it's like
that's true.
The shit stopped. Okay? That just shows you the power of these men. So with that being said, like you said, they're running out of ideas in Hollywood. So now it's our turn as black artists and black creatives to put our foot in the forefront. Because you're right. I'm getting tired of seeing remade movies, you know what I'm saying? That just shows you don't have nothing new. But, because we still live in a very prejudiced society, they try to make it seem like, well, all we have is these hood movies and stuff. And that's another thing that I'm trying to get the younger generation to get out that mindset. All right, yeah, Boys in the Hood and Juice and all that, that was great for its time, but that's not us as a people as a whole. I said, you understand, we love science fiction ourselves. So now it's time for us to tap into that vein and push it forward.
Well, even our own black music culture has evolved. We evolved for various reasons, and most of them are cultural. Most of them are current memes, because you go back to the 70s and you have the black exploitation movies. You've got Shaft, you've got Superfly, you've got Blackula, you've got all of those movies, and now a study just came out by some white folks, and I forget who it is, and I should probably go look it up, but I got my feet up. I ain't going to do any typing. But what they found is that movies, top-run movies that have black characters in them make more money. Now, what do you say behind that? What do you say when you have characters, and not necessarily lead characters they mention in the study? It's not just lead characters. It is, sub-characters.
Right.
So if diversity is going to bring in more money, where's the diversity? Well, the problem with that is the people who actually have the drawstrings on the money are risk averse. I mean, and in some ways, I don't blame them. If you're going to spend $150 million to $200 million on a movie, you're probably going to do what you think is the best thing to recoup your money, to make some money. But the fact that their ignorance is driving their business model and not the realities of the marketplace is the thing that's the threshold excuse me, that we have to get over to educate the people with the money. Now, as I said to you before, the tools are out there so that we can make some independent movies for less money. That was one of the things that was so exciting about Blair Witch Project. Crappy-ass movie, horrible acting, but because it was brand new, that style of film was so brand new, it made money, and didn't they do a crappy sequel to it too?
Yeah, that one really flopped.
Yeah. But look what Blair Witch did. Blair Witch ended up being the same movie making technique, the same thing as Cloverfield. There's a sci-fi movie right there with a monster in it. Yeah, no real black folks in it, but basically it was Friends meets Monster in New York. So, but the fact of the matter is, new and exciting does you get some money from people who say, you know what, this looks interesting. This idea looks exciting. We've never seen this before. And I think that's the strength, and I think that's going to be the impetus behind, this Afrofuturism and even Afro-retroism. I would like to see some movies about black folks from the past that didn't involve everyone being a slave or a butler, serving white folks. And those are the movies that make money. Yeah, but those are the movies that white money will make. It took a singular white man to do Red Tails. And I talk about this all the time. So when we look at, okay, let's say somebody takes my trilogy of books and turns it into 3 movies. That's probably going to be close to $750 million to make discovery, conception, and confrontation. Okay, that's a lot. I mean, that is a lot of money. Let's even if it's $600 million to make the 3 movies, that's a considerable amount of money, and someone is going to have to think long and hard before they even consider that. And even though the books are well reviewed and may take off, again, it's a simple matter of economics. Does somebody think that what I did will make them some money? Okay, so that's always the value proposition that everything gets evaluated by. If you look at your work, the space safarians, if you're going to look at creating a 3D movie and try to get some outside funding to do it, you're going to have to say, okay, where can I go for the funding? What's happening with these 3D movies? What's happening with, who's making money? Okay, well, we got Charlie Brown. Well, I'm not like Charlie Brown. We got Peabody and Sherman. We've got all of these other 3D movies. How do I convince someone to fund my 3D movie with the same kind of intensity? And when I say intensity, I mean marketing. Okay, that's what it takes. It's the marketing. So those are the challenges. And then, there are some notable African Americans who have money. I mean, who have decent money. I'm talking about Michael Jordan, Shaq money, that kind of money. And Oprah money. Can that money be leveraged, or will it be leveraged by those people who can pay for productions to do the kind of creative things that African Americans want to do, that black folks are out there trying to do? Let's be honest. The whole pimp hoe thing is played out as far as movies. Okay?
Yes, I'm not sick of that.
Well, and the thing is what can you tell? What new story can be told? Well, there is no new story to be told, and that's the thing I would like to see. You want to see the creativity. You want to see the ability of other creatives to get their stuff out there, and that's a tough road to hoe.
Right, and,
so,
and I would say this, not to interrupt, but I would say this. We've done some black action movies, and like you said, we've done all the Pimp Player. We've done a few of the breakdance movies. We've done some of the gangsterism and all that. Now it's time for, like you said, black science fiction. Now it's time for the black superhero to rise. Because I can truly say this. Watch what's getting ready to happen with that Captain America movie. The most interesting and probably the most popular character that's going to come out of this is Black Panther. You know what I'm saying? I mean, since they said the Black Panther is going to be in this movie, I mean, people have just really been shitting themselves. I'm like, oh, man. And when I saw that clip, now we all know old Captain America, he's on that cusp of being superhuman, right? He can run pretty fast. And when I saw that clip, the Black Panther was dusting his ass, running after the Winter Soldier. I was like, oh! I was like, wow, this is what I've been waiting for. So I know that there is a market. When you talk about like you said, that Oprah money, that Shaq money, that Michael money. Now remember when Spike Lee made Malcolm X, I heard that he was, running out of budget and he relied on some of these people to help him finish the rest of his movie. My whole thing is, if you can present a viable plan and a product to these people who have that money, of your own kind, I'm pretty sure they'll pitch in, because it's not like you're going up there, saying, hey, I need a little bit of funding. I'm making this movie about, about this thug dude, and he keeps beating on this bitch over here, and they found a bag of gold. They're not going to help you with that. But when you come out there and say, hey, I'm making a movie about a black guy that fell in a time machine and he got shot into the future or something like that, and his exploits of that time, and seeing black people of that day, they'll sit back and like, okay, that sounds a little different. That sounds pretty cool. You know what I'm saying? I believe that they'd be more apt to like, well, hey, we can cut you a check for this. We can help you out with that. It's the time for black science fiction. It's time for the black superheroes. It's time for the black retro fantasy science fiction to happen for us, because we've done everything else. Now it's time to get into this vein and push it forward.
Yeah, and I have to totally agree with that. I will tell you that one of the challenges that I have seen us have yet to meet is there are a lot of people out there, a lot of black folks out there who don't know the business of doing business. And that's the other trick that we have to pull out of our hats, because, and I hate to say it, but it's true. But the people who control a lot of this funding that we would like to use for our creative endeavors only respect, people who start a new business and don't do a business plan. Okay? Mm-hmm. And because they didn't do a business plan, they are undercapitalized, and then they fail within the first 24 months. There are so many people who have done that. People who as a business don't pay their taxes and don't file on time and things like that. We've had a lot of people do that. Okay, so if you talk about maybe being an business incubator for our people, one of the things that you have to teach them is there are rules to the game, and you have to adhere to the rules whether you like them or not. So that's a challenge that you have to get over. The reason why I could get $2.5 million funding for a movie was I dotted my I's, I crossed my T's, and I did what was necessary to make people go, okay, now we see exactly where the money is going. This all makes sense. When we look down the road, we're looking at 130% return on our money. We're happy with that. Well, that's the game you got to play. You got to play that game. And it is a game, because what it is what's patently obvious in your head, like you said, your vision, and what's patently obvious in my head is not something that someone else is automatically going to see. So the other part of this, the most important part of this, is to be able to hone the communication skills necessary, to make it happen. And that goes back to what the person said in the chat room. You're not born with a skill set, you're born with a gift. Okay, yeah, you have the gift, but you have to cultivate all of the skills necessary in order to make that gift come true. You know what I mean?
Right. I exactly know what you mean. It's just like, you have to we all wear different hats in this lifetime. And like I said, I always go back to my military time. When it's just like this. From 5 o'clock that morning till 5 o'clock that afternoon, I was a guy known as Sergeant Hill. But when that afternoon after 5 p.m. was over with, I went back to being Mark Hill. Mm-hmm. But make no mistake, if I have to type up a memorandum, I'm going to go back into Sergeant Hill mode. And, I have to use my wording, break out the thesaurus and my dictionary and be like, to all who's concerned, I am so-and-so, and just, you know how to talk formally. And I will say that's another thing that I see with our people, you know what I'm saying? Because let me say this, and you probably heard this as you came up as well. Because we like science fiction, because we like comic books, because we like certain cartoons, you've been called, oh, you trying to be white. All your friends are white, because every black kid is trying to be too cool for their own good. Well, I said, well, you know what? I learned how to be on both sides of the fence. Don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted that I'm trying to be white. No, I know how to exist in that realm. But at the same time, I know how to keep it real with us too. I know how to, when it's time to sit down and chop it up and talk some real game, I can do that. But if it's time to yes sir, no ma'am, I can do that as well. So I learned how to, exist on both sides of the fence, and that's something that black people as of today have lost. You just can't keep it real all the damn time. but you can't be John Doe here all the time either. You got to find that perfect balance. So when you're dealing with business and you're dealing with numbers and you're dealing with facts, you're gonna have to come off like basically like a white guy. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna have to, hey, this is my.
I mean, we don't.
And this is.
We don't have to call it being a white guy, but we have to call it being able to play the game.
Exactly.
Somebody who sounds like J.J. Walker and uses the same vocabulary as J.J. Walker in Good Times is not somebody who's going to be able to convince somebody to spend $50 million on a movie. That's just not going to happen.
Right.
I had the opposite thing happen to me. I had the good and bad fortune to go to college in Green Bay, Wisconsin, and normally, and I had a radio show up there, and I usually stayed up for the holidays because I could, and so I would have people over, Thanksgiving. I'd make a big ass turkey, like a 25, 30-pound turkey, and then other people who were stuck in town, couldn't go home, whatever, they would come over. We'd have a big dinner. So anyway, I got about a dozen folks there, and I think all but one were white. And all of a sudden, the phone rang, and it was from somebody here in Chicago. And I started talking to them the way I grew up. I don't exactly talk like that now because I'm old and played out. But anyway, I immediately switched gears, and I was talking to them. What's up? And blah 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 blah. And when I hung up the phone, I turned around, and they were all looking at me. They were just looking at me. They're going, "Who are you?" And I said, "What do you mean?" Because I didn't get it at first. And they said, "But you sounded so different." And I said, oh, that. And I said, I quickly said, "Well, look, if you go to France and you want to get along with the people, don't you try to learn as much French as you can?"
Exactly.
And they go, "Yeah." And they go, "Yeah." And I said, "Well, that's just me trying to be able to communicate best with the people I'm around." And then this one guy just repeated it. "But who are you? Which is the real you?" And I said, "They're both facets of me.
Yep.
I speak this way because the way I learned how to speak like this because I wanted to be on the radio and I didn't want to be in the 1400s on the AM dial. Okay.
Right.
And then and people don't realize it's the same thing in business. There's a way business people talk. There's a way business people think. There's a way bankers think. And so if you can't tap into, figuring out what they want, what they need in order to fulfill your own dreams, you're probably going to have a tough time having your dreams. And my secret that I gladly give to everybody, my secret for getting things done, for making things happen, for borrowing money, for putting together big projects is you have to take the time and make the effort to take away every reason for someone to say no. That's the secret. Okay,
yep.
That's the long and the short of the secret. And I say that to some people, and they look at me like I've lost my mother. I'm crazy, but it's true. If you want something from somebody, it's incumbent upon you to take away every reason for them to say no. If they say, "Well, it doesn't look like you have good time management here," well, shoot, you've already hit that. You've been in the military. That's not going to happen to you. Or if they say, it looks like you're trying to do this alone. Well, you go, "No, here's my team. Here's their skill sets. Here's their accolades. Here's their references." And then they go, "Okay, fine." But this is the art of the deal. And this is not the art of the deal from that dumbass Donald Trump. This is the art of the deal on how to get things done. And the way you get things done is you dot your I's, you cross your T's, and you take away every reason for someone to say no. There. I've given everybody the secret. That is the secret. And anybody else who tells you differently from what I told you don't know what the hell they're talking about, because that's the secret. Okay?
Right.
With my old ass self, this is what I figured out. I'm going to brag a little bit. I've got a project up here in Chicago. I'm building a computer and a 3D printer manufacturing plant. It's a $10 million project. I have $14 million lined up so that I have a cushion so that the first 2 years we don't go broke because we're not making as much money as when we're in full production. So how do you get $14 million for a $10 million deal? You take away every reason for someone to say no, and you look for the people who have the money. You look at the federal government for training. They're giving out $21,000 per person to train somebody for a tech job. You have 300 people, that's $7.5 million. You know, state of Illinois, they pay for renovation if you're going to go all green, gold or platinum certification, green power, power efficiency, and they pay your remodeling. That's $4.5 million for my project. You know, you go through and you do your homework, and that excuse that we used to hear from the brothers going, "Oh man, I ain't got time to do all that. I'm busy keeping it real. I can't be doing all of that." Well, if you don't do all of that, you are going to be a failure. You will fail.
Right.
You will fail, and I will revel in your failure for telling me that you were busy keeping it real because what I suggested to you had no value. Go ahead.
Right. So, I totally agree. What you said, I'm keeping it real. I just say, yeah, you're going to keep it real broke. I'm just like this. What you're saying, you're putting in your time, you're putting in your effort, you're researching, you're talking to people. It's work, okay? My grandmother used to say, you actually do more work trying to get out of doing something than just to go ahead and do it, okay? You actually burn more hours and burn through more resources trying to get around something to just say, hey, just let's go through it, okay? And I say this, I keep saying this because I listened to Dr. Claude Anderson talk about power economics. He's basically saying part of the reason why, we know we live in a very racist society, but part of the reason why we're still the victims of a lot of racism is because black people don't own nothing, okay? We do not own anything. You know what I'm saying? And when you look at, like, the Asian culture, they own stuff. They own businesses. They own banks. I remember when I went out to Seattle one time to visit my kids, my mother came with me. And we was up in Seattle, and we went to this, one Asian supermarket. And I told my mother, I said, look around and tell me what you see. I said, what do you see? She said, I see a lot of Asian people. I said, yeah, they employ their own people. I said, they have a bank, they have a furniture store, and this is a supermarket. I said, make no qualms. They're about their self. They're about their business. I keep saying, hey, this is what we need to do. Not everybody can be a sports celebrity or some famous rapper or some television personality. A lot of us are just regular common people, but at the same time, we need to start joining hands and building because we're basically being put in the last place, and I hate to say it, with all the brutality that we see, and some of it is very much unjustified. We're being exterminated because it's all about dollars and cents. It's not about what side of town you live on, or what political faction you belong to, or what religious organization you belong to. All that doesn't matter. What matters is the dollars and cents. And I'm hearing you talk about building, and you're piquing my curiosity now. But that's a good thing because, hey, I'm trying to get where you are, and at the same time, I'm training my children. That's the next thing. We gotta start passing on stuff to our children. For example, or having a successor. For example, when Def Jam came out in the 80s, Russell Simmons ran it, right? And you had all this great music, but he sold his company to whoever, and the music sucks. Hip-hop music sucks now because we're not in control of it. We'll see that money and we're ready to grab it, but you don't have nobody in place behind you to take over to continue the great and wonderful things that you started. And that's a shot in our foot as black people. We need to really start, like you said, looking into the tech industries. We need to start looking into manufacturing things. We need to start looking at distribution. Because I'm sorry, we depend so heavily on everybody else to give us what little they don't want to give us, and we always complain. And I said, it's time for us to start looking to us to save us. Nobody's coming to save us but us. We need to start working together, and we really, that is the gospel truth. What I just said, nobody's coming to save us but us, and we need to start building back up what we once had.
Well, and the fact of the matter is, excuse me, as far as black creatives are concerned, if you're a black creative, whether it's film, comic books, art, music, whatever, you're an entrepreneur. You're a business person, and learning the business of doing business is a survival skill these days. I hate to cut this short because I'm having a good time here, but we're actually a minute over time, and we're going to have Jarvis come in and close down the show. But hang on after the show ends, and maybe we could chat a little bit more because, you know, sometimes we get to say things outside the show that we don't necessarily want recorded.
Right,
right.
So, I feel you.
So I see Jarvis is dialed in. Hopefully he's ready to go and go ahead and close out the show. You there? He was in his car. I know he had to go pick up his son.
Okay.
And I see he's on the call, but apparently he might be downstairs making a grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good right now.
Yeah, but let me just continue on with this until he does pick up. The thing about being a black creative, you know, whether you're an artist, a musician, an author, what have you, animator, comic book creator, that part about doing business is really important.
Exactly.
We all have the same challenge, and that challenge is raising our work, raising its visibility so that it's seen, heard, whatever, above the background noise. Because, you know, those same tools that allow us to do so many things, do our own film, do our own music, do our own art, have not only made things better for creatives, but it's unleashed so many more creatives that sometimes it's tough in the create space to be able to distinguish yourself easily so that other people find what you have going on.
Right.
And so that one challenge I think is the biggest challenge, because I see so much. I mean, your Space Safarians is a completed concept. It's not tentative or anything. It's a concept that's already rolled out, and you already have a plan for it, which is, you know, eventually to get to animation, eventually get to, you said, a video game. So you've got all of this creative concept that is completed. It just needs it needs the finishing, and it needs the marketing to get your name out there in a way that other people will find you. So I think that's where the essential part of networking comes together. Jarvis, is that you?
Yeah.
Are you in the car?
Yes, sir.
Can you talk and drive?
Oh yeah, I'm about 30 minutes out, but I can talk, but I'm gonna have to edit the show, edit the latter part out.
All right. Well, let's do this.
I can't run the board and drive.
No. Why don't you go ahead and say your good night, and then we'll pause for a couple seconds, and then Mark and I will pick back up. Okay?
All right. Good deal. I just wanted to thank everybody, as always, for supporting what we're doing with Black Science Fiction Society and with the radio show and with all the things that we do. Thanks, Mark, for coming on. It was good getting to know you even more. I had the privilege of meeting him this last week, and we talked about some things, and we're probably going to meet up again tomorrow and pick up where we left off. And once again, Will, for making it entertaining, and everybody that shared the show and actually tuned in and that will tune in. Thank you very much, and have a great night.
Well, thank you very much, Jarvis. Have safe travels on the road. Mark, I want to thank you very much for a very, very entertaining discussion. Hey, and let me ask you, did you enjoy your time?
Yeah, this was great. You know, I said, to me, this is a start. This is a start in the right direction. I truly enjoyed this.
Okay, good. Hang on. And on behalf of everybody who puts the show together, the people who listen to the show, the people who comment, the people who come on, the people who actually show up every week, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank you for your support, and we will catch you next week. I'm going to pause here for a few seconds so that Jarvis can edit in the end of the show, and then Mark, we'll talk more. Thank you all. We'll see you next week.